utter delusion that I'm hearing from New York Giants fans needs to stop right now. We're going to have a very serious conversation here. You guys know that I'm not normally one to get very emotional and overreact to things, but some of the stuff that I'm hearing from the New York Giants crowd ahead of this week 1 matchup is just blowing my mind, and someone needs to say something. We need to put an end to this. The internet is a place for free opinions. This is my opinion. That's why I'm putting this out there. But there's a difference between sharing what you believe in and sharing completely false narratives that you're trying to propagate onto an entire fan base. We're going to get into all of that in just a second, guys. But before we do, make sure you hit the like button. It's week 1. The game's right around the corner. Make sure you hit that like button if you're fired up and excited like I am. Hit the subscribe button if you are new around here. And let me get into this monstrosity that I've just witnessed. So I was watching an interview conducted by the Sports Junkies and 106.7 The Fan with Paul Dottino, who is a New York Giants reporter and self-admittedly a New York Giants fan. Now, this is not a personal attack at Mr. Dottino. I saw in his Twitter bio, he's been a professional since the 80s or 90s. He's an experienced guy. I'm not challenging his intellect in any way. I am challenging the things he said during this interview. Everybody's got their personal allegiances, right? If you're like me, you actually don't protect your team as much as you would any other team. I'm actually overly critical of my teams because I hold them to such a high standard, even if sometimes it's not fair to do so. Everyone's got their biases. If he went on there and spoke as a fan, I would have no problems with it. When you are being pulled in as an official reporter, and you have to understand, you have the responsibility of upholding the integrity of just what is right and what is wrong when you're speaking on the radio, especially when you're speaking on local radio to fans in the DMV. It's cool to have an opposing viewpoint. I had an Eagles fan on here, and I thought we had some great conversations. We dove into the analytics. He talked about what he was scared about of the Commanders. I talked about what I was scared of with the Eagles. It was a great flowing conversation. Mr. Dottino said so much nonsense during this interview, and I'm going to share it with you guys, and we're going to talk about it. So they were clearly talking about the focus of the interview was supposed to be, what are the Giants going to do in week 1? What's the game plan? How do they beat the Commanders? It turned into just this ridiculous praise / propaganda spewing session. Many of things just were not true. So the first thing he said was, he started by saying the Giants are much better than they were last year, which I'm cool with. But then he said when the Giants gave the Commanders fits in both games last year, he said they're better now than they were when they gave the Commanders fits. Well, let me dispel this right now. Game 1, the one which was Jayden Daniels' first win of his career, Commanders 21, Giants 18. It's a weird game where the Giants kicker gets injured running down the field. They don't have a kicker for the rest of the game. They score, I think, 3 touchdowns, but don't get extra points or 2-point conversions on any of them. The Commanders kick 7 field goals, don't score a touchdown, and they win. It was a strange game, no doubt about it. The Commanders kept getting to the red zone, it felt like, and then not punching it in. So how did the Giants give the Commanders fits in that game? Well, the Commanders had 425 yards to the Giants 304. They averaged more yards per play on passes and on runs than the Giants did. The time of possession, the Commanders had the ball for 37 minutes and 32 seconds. The Giants had it for 22 seconds and 28 seconds. The Giants turned the ball over. The Commanders didn't. The Commanders committed 10 penalties in that game. The Giants committed 5. So it was self-inflicted mistakes, a rookie who didn't quite understand at that point in his career how to get the ball into the end zone, and penalties. That's the only reason that game was close. How about in the second game, which also, remember, the Giants gave the Commanders fits in both games. The Commanders were up 24-10 in the fourth quarter. The Giants scored with 9 minutes left to make it 24-16. The Commanders put it away, and then the Giants score again in garbage time to make the score look a lot closer than it actually was. That game was not close. Jayden Daniels and company were putting belt to ass in that game, yet somehow the Giants were giving the Commanders fits. Okay, give me a break. That's only the beginning of the ridiculousness of this interview. So this guy, Paul Dottino, again, nothing against him personally. Don't say this disrespectfully. Hadn't heard of him before. That's fine. He's never heard of me. I'm just talking about what he said in this interview. He said the Giants defense is great everywhere. He did bring up the fact he was uncertain about their ability to stop the run. but he called them a top 5 unit in the league and was bigging up the signings of Javon Holland, who was one of the 2 best safeties on the market, Chauncey Golston, who he was bragging that they swiped from a division rival in the Cowboys. Look, I agree the Giants can rush the passer. All of my longtime viewers know I've said it like a million times at this point. I think the Giants could have the best defensive line in the league. I'm not here to argue with that. But can we just cool it? We don't need to take kernels of truth and hyperbolicize them to the point that they just become narratives that have no basis in fact. Why are we saying the Giants are a great defense? Why are we saying they're a top 5 defense? Top 5 defensive line? No doubt. You're probably actually underselling them. They're probably top 3, top 2, top 1. Have we forgotten that cornerbacks matter? The Giants' outside corners are awful. If there's any fan base that knows the limitations of having terrible corners on your team, it's the Commanders. Last year, if the corners started the year playing average, this team probably goes 14-3, 15-2. Commanders get the 1 seed, maybe they win the Super Bowl. When you start the year with, who I'm trying to even remember, was it Michael Davis and Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St-Juste? You compare that to this year with Trey Amos and Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Sainristil. Do you know how big of a difference that is? And I'm not even convinced the Commanders' corners are going to be great. I think they could be like 13th in the league. I don't know. There's questions about Lattimore. There's questions about the style that they're going to play, all the man coverage, the cover 1, cover 0. Does that leave you exposed? I don't know. But the Giants have one of the, if not the worst cornerbacking pairings in the entire NFL. I like their nickel, but the outside corners, they can't defend anybody. So with that alone, even if they are elite everywhere else on the field, if your 2 primary players responsible for stopping the pass can't stay in front of anybody, how is this a top 5 defense? Just explain it to me. Take your time. Think about it. Because I'm waiting. I'm waiting to hear an explanation on that. This is maybe the most ridiculous part of the whole commentary. Mr. Dottino, sorry, forgot his name. Mr. Dottino said that the Giants defensive line coach has unlocked 32-year-old Roy Robertson-Harris, who had 20 tackles and 2 sacks while playing for 2 different teams last year. He said that he's never been coached correctly before, but this coach knows how to get it out of him. He then said, I have faith in this coach because he turned Dexter Lawrence into an all-pro. Really? Dexter Lawrence, who was a standout at Clemson, who was a first-round draft pick, who's drafted 17th overall, we're going to give credit for him becoming a great player to the defensive line coach? Your coaches matter, sure, but when you're drafted in the first round, when you have just the physical presence, the tools that Dexter Lawrence does, if he wasn't a great player, it would have been a disappointment. It would have been more of a disappointment if Dexter Lawrence wasn't a great player than it is impressive that Dexter Lawrence is a great player. So we're going to use a player being drafted in the first round, an extremely highly touted prospect. We're going to use that as proof a defensive line coach can unlock a 32-year-old from UTEP who's never really made a name for himself in this league. Cut me a break. Lawrence was already going to be great. Roy Robertson-Harris, that's the proof the Giants are going to turn around. Again, there was so much silliness that was spewed in this interview. And as someone who works in sports and has a job to maintain a level of journalistic and professional integrity, it bothers me when people don't abide to those principles, especially people who have been doing this for a long time, much less ones who are speaking in local radio in the area of their opponents. You owe it to them to stick to the truth. And you can insert your opinions and say, well, because of this fact, this is how I view this. Because of this situation, this leaves me with this conclusion, and I think this will happen. It doesn't give you the privilege to just lie about whatever you're talking about. Here we go. He says the Giants are going to surprise a lot of people. They will be around 500 this season. Again, I think the Giants have made a lot of improvements. I'm going to read you their schedule. If they're around 500, that means they're either 8-9 or 9-8. I want you to tell me how that's possible. At Commanders, at Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers, 0-4, 1-3 best case scenario. At Saints, easiest game of the season, but it's on the road. Eagles, at Broncos, at Eagles, 49ers, at Bears, Packers, Lions, at Patriots, Commanders, Vikings, at Raiders, Cowboys. This entire interview was the definition of speaking in generalities. Anyone can look at the Giants roster and say, oh, Russell Wilson's an upgrade over Daniel Jones. I like that. Oh, Andrew Thomas is healthy again, although he's actually not. He might not play in week 1. He only got cleared for his physical on August 21st, and he hasn't done any team drills yet. But sure, Andrew Thomas is back. Oh, we drafted Abdul Carter. Oh, we drafted Cam Scatterbo. Wow, this roster, man, all the upgrades. Yeah, I think we're gonna go 8-9, 9-8 this season. It's anyone in the world can do that. There's a very small level of research that is required. You just got to go to ESPN.com, click on the Giants, and their schedule is right there. So when you say they're going to go 500, do they have the composition of a 500 level football team? Yeah, maybe. Are they going to go 500 with this schedule, which is one of the hardest schedules that I've ever seen? No, they're not. So as someone who I know spends a lot of time covering this team, because it's literally his job, but he's been at training camp, been at preseason games. He's talking to people who are in the know. I know that he's looked at this schedule. Don't lie to the audience and say that this team will be around 500 all year. And if they do, you know what? I'll come back to it. If they do, I'll come back to this and I will say you were so right and I was so wrong. I did this with my friend. I have a friend who's an Eagles fan. He said the Eagles were going to blow out the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I said that's disrespectful. Why would you even think of saying that? I was totally wrong. He was totally right. And I told him that. It's like, look, I thought you were biased. I was wrong. You actually knew what you're talking about. Not that he's a dumb person, but I thought in this instance, he was just being blinded by his own allegiances. It's like, no, you're right. You were right. I was wrong. So if we get to the end of the year and the Giants go 8-9 and 9-8, I'll say, you know what? Fair play. I don't know how I didn't see this coming. But this schedule, barring any major catastrophic injuries, I just don't see how it's going to happen. And then he closes out this interview. By saying, quote, I don't think Washington's going to have a very good season, to be honest with you. What does that mean? 12-5 exceeded all expectations. In fact, the Commanders could go 10-7 this year and actually still be better than they were last year through a couple of different ways. They could win without all of the comebacks. They could win with higher point margins. They could beat better opponents. They face a tougher schedule. So they could be better this year with a worse record than last season. So what does this mean? I don't think the Commanders have a good season, to be honest with you. Show some balls. Again, you're speaking to DMV local radio. Why don't you stand on what you believe in? Is it 8-9? Nikki Javala, who's the Commanders reporter for The Athletic, someone who I respect a lot, she said the Commanders going 8-9. And I have no problem agreeing. Progress is not always linear. You're not always going to go 12-5, 13-4, 14-3, 15-2 Super Bowl. No, sometimes you're going to go 12-5, 8-9, 11-6, 14-3 Super Bowl. It can happen in different stages like that. But to just say they're not going to have a good season and then be done with it, and then he also adds, it's the Eagles division, and after that, I can't pick who's going to finish second, Giants, Cowboys, or Commanders. What are we talking about here? So basically, all you have done is say that the Giants are better in every way. The Commanders are going to take a step back, although you haven't described why. You mentioned very briefly that you don't like their pass rushing, you don't like their run defense. Okay, cool. Well, why don't you tell me about the signings they made and who you don't like? Why don't you tell me about what you saw in different games? Why don't you tell me about what your expectations for Jayden Daniels are, for this coaching staff, for this roster, for head-to-head matchups, for a playoff run? You can't give me anything. You can't give me a record, and you can't pick who's going to finish in second place. So basically what you're saying is you just don't know. All you know is the Giants have gotten better in every way. You lied and said they gave the Commanders fits last year, and then you said, I don't even really have a prediction. That's all I'm taking from this. It's a load of nonsense. Let me make myself very clear. If you're a Giants fan and this video has gotten into your algorithms, I'm not saying you guys can't win in week 1. If we go by sportsbook odds, here, give me 2 seconds. Let me find what the odds for the game are. What is the Giants? So the Giants are plus 220 on the money line. So that means if we just find the implied probability, it means they have a 31.2% chance to win the game. So 3 times out of 10 you play this game, the Giants win. That's what the sportsbooks are telling you. That means they very clearly have a chance to win the game. It's not out of the question. It's a 5.5 point spread. When the line was at 6.5, I would have been taking the Giants side of that to cover, which means they're going to be in this game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. They'll be right there. They could split the season series. Heck, they could sweep the season series. My point here is not about a standalone game. It's about the way that we just discuss our own teams and our opponents on anywhere with friends, on the internet, speaking on a radio show like Mr. Dottino. However we do it, we have to stick to the facts, and we can use those to then form opinions and make predictions. And I'm not saying nobody can have predictions. Again, if you want to say the Giants are going to beat the Commanders, I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I might say I disagree, and I might ask for your logic behind it, your reasoning, but I can't tell you you're wrong because I don't know what's going to happen. But when you go out and you just blatantly lie about facts that we know are to be different than what you're saying, or about your opinions that are just so far-fetched that it strays from reality, I need to call it out. So again, to any Giants fans who are getting this video, please don't feel like I'm yelling at you, because I'm not. I respect your opinions. People respect my opinions. That's why I have a YouTube channel, but that's also not me putting myself on a pedestal. There are plenty of people out there who don't agree with me, but this is just a place where we share opinions. So now that I'm at the end of my rant here, make sure you go to the comment section, give me your thoughts on what I said. Make sure you leave me your thoughts on anything related to this, whether it's opinions on the Commanders roster, opinions on the Giants, opinions on Dottino's comments, week one, anything, go to the comment section. I'm going to read them. I'm going to try to respond to as many as I can. I am going to go ahead and get on out of here. Might be back with another video later today. We'll have to wait and see, but it's going to do it. I'm pretty fired up. Make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. Like I always say, I'll catch you in the next one. Have a great day.